Uh-oh. So this kind of happens this happens sometimes, but it's really funny when it does because the narrative is always about feminism and the patriarchy and all of these other things. And the reality is that life is nuanced. In some fields, men are paid more than women. In some fields, women are paid more than men. In some fields, they're dominated by women. In some fields, they're dominated by men. Yet for some reason, they want to persist with this gender wage gap thing. Well, now we have a story from the New York Times. Google moves to address wage equity. Oh, this is fantastic. Thank you, Google, for addressing the plight of women and bringing about equality. And they found they're underpaying men. Uh-oh. Well, it says many men. So let's be fair. Maybe they're not underpaying all men, but this is very similar to a story we saw, I think it was like 6, 7 months ago, where the BBC did an internal audit and found they were actually overpaying women and had to do a big raise for most men. And feminists were outraged because they gave a bunch of dudes raises. And I think look, listen, if you want equality, all right, and then you get mad when dudes get a raise because women are getting paid more, you're not actually asking for equality, you're asking for superiority. It's a big difference. So no, this doesn't reflect all feminists or anything. It was just the select ones that were being nasty. But we should call it the nasty people and read this story. When Google conducted a study recently to determine whether the company was underpaying women and members of minority groups, it found that more men than women were receiving less money for doing similar work. Whoa, let's try that one more time. It found that more men than women were receiving less money, aka women were getting paid more for similar work. Uh-oh, your narrative's falling apart. The surprising conclusion to the latest version of the annual study contrasted sharply with the experience of women working in Silicon Valley and in many other industries. No, maybe it's just that the spoiled brats of the industry are the squeaky wheels who get the grease. And because there's so many beta males who just they think white knighting for women guarantees them getting laid, it results in them fawning over the women, telling them they're right when they're not, and then giving them things they don't need because they just... Look, there are guys like me, for instance. I will not treat a man different than a woman or vice versa in most respects. I'm not going to expect your average woman to lift a body out of a burning building. I would, in most instances, a guy could do that job. But if the woman is 6'3" and super ripped, I'm not going to make a scrawny little dude do it. The point is, for the most part, it doesn't matter what your gender is. It matters whether or not you're capable, you have the ability, the talent. That's all that matters. And that should be true for work. In this, we are now finding, once again, that it was actually men being underpaid. And I have a theory for this. I grew up and life was pretty rough. I was homeless on a few occasions, and I struggled to find work. I was a high school dropout. I remember when I went to a bunch of different bars right around the time I turned 21, trying to find whatever grunt job I could get, and they all told me the same thing. When it comes to these entry-level jobs, they prefer to hire women in the restaurant industry because they want the young females to, they make a ton of money when the older guys come in trying to hook up. And so what ends up happening is, here's my theory, and I could be wrong, this is just me, my personal experience. I feel like for young men who grow up being treated like total refuse, you're more likely to be homeless, people care a lot less about you, you're forced to bottle up your emotions, entry-level jobs are harder to get, you end up just not caring, right? You're like, whatever. So what happens when you're 25, right? Around 25 to 28 is when we start seeing the value of men and women in society shift. And that's because whether or not you agree with it or not, in many ways, women are mostly valued when they're young. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's typically what we see in the data. So women, for the most of their lives, are spoiled princesses. Not all of them, but you compared to men who are more likely to be homeless and make less money, you have women who grow up being overly protected and valued by society. When they get older, they can't go up any further because society already treats them like the best. But as they start to age, then society starts to get more unfair. And in my opinion, it is completely unfair that we would value women any less simply because they're getting older. I understand the evolutionary psychology and biology behind it, but I think we as humans need to evolve culturally to respect the civil liberties of all individuals and value people based on their abilities. The point being, for a young guy, life just keeps getting better. And for a woman entering her 30s, life starts to get worse. And this is why, based on the individual perspective, a woman will say, wow, this isn't fair. All the guys around me are doing so well. It's not fair. And the guys are going, oh my God, my life was crap for so long and now things are getting better. But then you end up with a bunch of guys who are probably in a similar space to me who don't care that feminists are demanding more money. I'm like, whatever, man, you do you, I'll do me. If a company wants to give you money, I'm out. Whatever, dude. I can make money for myself. I don't need to be, I'm not tethered to anybody. And so this creates the different perspectives. But then you have some guys who aren't capable and independent, who think the only way to get a woman is to be a white knight and fawn over them. And we see this time and time again. And that's why, in my opinion at least, we see so many of these, male feminists turn out to be abusers. That was their MO. They're sneaky. I don't want to rant too much on this. Let's read through the article. The surprising conclusion to the latest version of the annual study contrasted sharply with the experience of women working in Silicon Valley and in many other industries. In response to the finding, Google gave $9.7 million in additional compensation to 10,677 employees for this year. Men account for 69%. Oh, I thought I was going to get into the money. Men account for 69% of the company's workforce, but they receive a disproportionately higher percentage of the money. The exact number of men who got raises is unclear. But the study did not tell the whole story of women at Google or in the technology industry more broadly, something that company officials acknowledged. Oh, here we go. Here comes the apology. Here comes them saying, no, it's not just, it's bigger than us. Right, okay. Most significantly, it did not address ingrained issues that, according to workplace experts, cannot be overcome simply by considering how much different people are getting paid for the same job. Women and racial minorities often do not get the same opportunities, and they must overcome certain biases when they're hired or compete for promotions. Yes, I agree that's a problem. But we don't solve that problem by doing more of the same problem. Simply going, well, let's discriminate against this group of people to benefit that group of people doesn't solve the problem. I don't know what will solve the problem. And in fact, they've done these blind hiring studies where they remove name and gender from resumes, and it still overwhelmingly benefits white men. For whatever reason, I don't know. It's a complicated problem. I can tell you this. Punishing people based on race and gender is not a solution to the problem. It's like, this isn't something that I find inherent on the left, for whatever reason, and it doesn't need to be. Okay, a rising tide raises all ships. There's no need to break someone. Imagine this: you got 10 people, and they're all basketball players. One guy is just really good, so what do? They whack him in the kneecap with a lead pipe, shattering his kneecap. So now he's staggered. That's not fair. You just injured somebody. I don't know what you want us to do, right? How do you deal with the fact that some people are naturally good at some things and not at others? People need to find their passions and find their talents. And the harsh reality of the world is some people are smarter, some people are faster, some people are stronger, period. And it seems like the solution to inequality from the left is punishing people for things that they can't control. That's terrifying, really. Humanity has become successful because every so often somebody does something great. I don't care about what the race, gender, identity, whatever of these, I don't care. All that matters is that someone does something great, whoever they are. Someone discovers electricity, or a way to actually generate, transfer, store, etc. The various ways in which we can use electricity to power our lives, computers, they're amazing advancements, and people can contribute to these things. The best of the best, those with the merit, solve the problems, and then they give the gift. I'll put it this way: every so often, you will have another instance of Prometheus stealing fire from Mount Olympus to bring it down to everyone else. That one person is the person who took the fire from the mountaintop and ran down. Not everyone had the ability to climb that mountain, but everyone benefited eventually from the theft of fire from Mount Olympus. The point I'm trying to make is, just because someone is good at something doesn't mean you should punish them and hold them back, because eventually, not always, but if they do good work, if they invent something great and powerful, if they contribute to society, that will make its way around to everybody. A person in poverty today in America has better health care than Rockefeller did at the turn of the century. Why? Because we have slowly improved technology, and it's become easier and easier to develop new technologies and pass those technologies on to the impoverished. People who are poor today have refrigerators, they have televisions, they have microwaves, they have cell phones. The poor people in the United States today have access to the summation of human knowledge on a $20 cell phone they can grab from Walmart. I'm not saying they're in a good position. I'm saying things have gotten better based on the system we have. Life expectancy, everything. You have this story here. What does it reveal to us? In your attempt to find equality for women, you've actually stunted men. and now you've got to pay those men. It's going to be a back and forth boomerang game. But then they try and play up that, oh, but there's still problems. Like, yes, look, I get it. I get it. I'm going to end by saying this because I really don't want to go on for too much longer. I'm not surprised to find that this backfires, that they repeat the narrative over and over and over again that women are oppressed and getting paid less than men, and then it turns out it was actually the men being underpaid, and they have to solve the problem, and then it outrages the feminists who don't believe it. Yes, I'm not surprised to see this. But the only thing that really matters is, at the end of the day, merit. Your ability to do the job, to get paid for the job. Not everyone is going to be able to be in the NBA and be a millionaire. That's just the way life is. You know, there are some people. You look at Muggsy Bogues, famous, NBA player. He's 5'3". He made it. You work hard enough, overcome your challenges, and recognize everybody is dealt a different hand. Unfortunately for you, some people are dealt a royal flush. That doesn't mean you can take it away from them. It just means you got to figure out what you have and play right. Because believe it or not, if you've ever watched a poker game, maybe the best example of how the world works. You'll see somebody, they got suited ace king. And then the cards drop and they're 90% chance to win, and then all of a sudden the dude with a really crappy off-suited 2 and a 7 somehow gets 2 pair and wins. Or maybe just 1 pair. Maybe that really good hand of a suited ace king, if you don't know poker, it's a good hand. And maybe, even though he had a really good hand, it just didn't come up for him. You can't point the finger at him and say, your hand was better than mine, that means you're guaranteed to win. It's just not true. And not only that, but more to the point with the poker analogy, is that sometimes luck plays a role. But if you know how to play, if you know how to bluff, if you know how to bet, you can have an offsuit 2 and a 7 up against somebody who's got a suited ace and a king, and even if they've got that royal flush on the table, or well, maybe not a royal flush, I think they're gonna win. But let's say they've got a pair, 2 aces, you can still win by being better at the game and making them think you have a better hand. So the long story short, you may be dealt a bad hand. You can still win as long as you try and figure it out. But if you keep pointing the finger at other people, you're never going to improve. I'm going to wrap it up there. Stick around. I've got more videos coming up tomorrow, and oh boy, is tomorrow going to be a hell of a lot of fun. You're going to be excited. I'm in Los Angeles. We'll see what happens. I'll see you tomorrow.